The music was too loud, but I didn't care. My pulse was louder. I pushed my way through the haze of neon lights and cheap cologne, ignoring the laughter and the pounding bass, heading straight for the corner booth. I'd been here before with him, my boyfriend Matt. Was our spot. That's why my stomach twisted the moment I saw his familiar frame leaning just a little too close to someone else. At first I thought maybe it was innocent. Maybe it was a coworker, a friend. But then I saw his hand on the other guy's thigh, his head tipped back in laughter, his lips brushing too close when he whispered something I couldn't hear. And just like that, the fragile trust I'd been patching together for months collapsed. I froze, standing there in the middle of the bar like an idiot, while people brushed past me carrying their drinks. My heart thudded against my ribs so hard it hurt. My breath came shallow, my vision tunneled. All I could see was him, my boyfriend, my supposed partner, touching someone else like I didn't exist. Matt, I heard myself bark louder than I intended. Heads turned. My voice cracked with fury and disbelief. What the hell is this? He jerked back like a guilty kid caught red-handed. The other guy slid away quickly, muttering something before disappearing into the crowd. Matt's face was red, eyes wide, but instead of shame I saw annoyance. Like I was the one interrupting him. Don't do this here, he hissed, standing up from the booth. But my blood was boiling. Don't do this here? You mean don't catch you cheating here? Don't embarrass you in front of your flavor of the night. People were watching now. The bar had that electricity of a fight about to start, everyone half curious, half hungry for drama. I didn't care. My chest felt like it was splitting open and I needed the whole world to see it. You told me you were working late, I spat, my fists trembling at my sides. You told me I was paranoid when I asked questions. And now I find you here with him, touching him like. Matt shoved me, not hard enough to knock me over but enough to shock me. Stop making a scene, he snapped, his jaw tight. I lost it. I shoved him back. Chairs scraped, someone gasped. My throat was raw from yelling but I couldn't stop. I wanted him to hurt the way I was hurting. I wanted him to feel even a fraction of the betrayal ripping through me. Don't you dare tell me to stop. You humiliated me, Matt. You lied to my face, you made me believe. Hey, break it up. The voice cut through the chaos, deep and commanding. A ripple of silence followed, and then the crowd parted like the Red Sea. Standing there was a cop, tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of man who filled the doorway with authority. His uniform was crisp, his eyes sharp under the brim of his cap. He moved toward us, steady, unhurried, like he'd seen 100 scenes like this before. My stomach plummeted. Great. Just great. First I lose my boyfriend, now I get arrested for disorderly conduct in front of half the city. Both of you hands where I can see them, the cop said evenly, stepping between me and Matt. His presence was enough to make Matt back up, hands raised in exaggerated innocence. He's out of control, Matt said quickly, pointing at me. He attacked me. Attacked you? I barked out a humorless laugh. You were. The cop's gaze snapped to me and I shut up instantly. His eyes weren't cruel though. They were steady, assessing like he was seeing more than the surface. All right, he said, his voice quieter now but firm. Let's step outside. Both of you. Matt shrugged, already pulling out his phone like he had better things to do. I, on the other hand, felt my knees wobble. I expected cold cuffs on my wrists, a shove into the back of a squad car. My heart pounded as I followed the cop outside into the night air. The bar noise muffled behind us. Out here, the streetlights hummed, casting long shadows. My hands trembled as I shoved them into my pockets, trying to look less like a criminal and more like a guy whose life had just imploded. Name? The cop asked. I swallowed hard. Ryan. My voice cracked. He nodded once. Ryan, you're not in trouble. But that scene in there could have gotten ugly. I blinked at him. Not in trouble? No, his tone was blunt, matter of fact. You're not drunk, you're not carrying, and you didn't throw the first punch. You're hurt. I can see that. But you need to cool off before you do something you regret. For a moment, I just stared at him. I wasn't used to cops talking like that, like he actually gave a damn. I don't have anywhere to go, I admitted before I could stop myself. The words felt raw, too honest. My apartment was half Matt's, and the thought of going back there made bile rise in my throat. The cop studied me for a beat, then exhaled through his nose, like he'd made a decision he wasn't sure he should make. I live outside town, he said slowly. Farmhouse. Quiet. You look like you could use some quiet. I blinked at him again. Are you offering me a ride? He gave a single nod. I could haul you in, sure. But I don't think you need a cell tonight. You need a place to breathe. Disbelief coursed through me. This had to be some kind of trick, some test. Cops didn't invite strangers to their homes. Cops didn't show mercy to guys who made scenes in bars. Why? I asked hoarsely. His gaze softened just a fraction. Because I've seen men burn their lives down in one night over betrayal. And I don't feel like scraping you off the pavement if you make a bad choice. You want to come or not? The silence stretched between us. I glanced back toward the bar where Matt was probably laughing it off already, texting his new guy. The thought of facing that, of going home to a bed that still smelled like him, was unbearable. I licked my lips, my voice barely audible. Yeah, I'll come. Something flickered in the cop's eyes, relief, maybe, or recognition. He gestured to his cruiser. Then let's go. As I slid into the passenger seat, the leather cool against my skin, a surreal calm washed over me. I should have been terrified. I should have been questioning my sanity. But instead all I felt was exhausted. Exhausted and strangely safe. I glanced at the nameplate on his uniform as he started the engine. Officer Cole. The night swallowed the city behind us as we drove into the dark, toward his farmhouse, toward something I couldn't name yet, something I didn't dare hope for. The drive out of the city felt like leaving a battlefield. Neon lights faded into scattered street lamps, and then even those gave way to open darkness. The hum of the cruiser was steady, almost soothing, and I caught myself staring out the window like a kid being driven home after a long night. Only this time there was no home to go back to. Cole didn't say much. He drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on his thigh, posture steady, eyes fixed ahead. The silence between us wasn't awkward though. It was solid. Like he didn't need to fill the air with questions or judgment. After about 30 minutes, we turned down a gravel road lined with trees. The cruiser's headlights bounced off the branches, and then the farmhouse came into view. A white two-story with a sloping roof and a wide porch, the kind of place you saw on postcards. The night air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine. Crickets chirped in the dark. Cole parked and cut the engine. Here we are. I stepped out, gravel crunching under my sneakers, and for the first time all night I felt the world slow down. No music, no laughter, no betrayal gnawing at me in public view. Just quiet. He led me up the porch steps and unlocked the door. Inside, the place smelled faintly of wood smoke and coffee. The living room was simple but warm, worn leather couch, books stacked haphazardly on the side table, a stone fireplace with ashes still gray from some recent fire. Boots lined the entryway. A framed photo of a horse hung on the wall. Not much, Cole said, setting his keys down in a bowl. But it's quiet. And no one's gonna bother you here. My throat felt tight. It's nice. And it was. Maybe too nice. The kind of place that made you realize how hollow your apartment felt in comparison. He gave me a long look like he was gauging how close I was to falling apart. Then he pointed toward the couch. You can crash there tonight. Just stay here. No trouble. Something in his tone, not harsh but firm, grounded me. I nodded quickly. Yeah. No trouble. He moved into the kitchen and I followed, hovering in the doorway. He opened the fridge, pulled out a carton of eggs, a block of cheese and a loaf of bread. You hungry? He asked. I blinked at him. You don't have to. I asked if you're hungry, he interrupted, already cracking eggs into a pan. The smell of butter hit me, rich and comforting, and my stomach betrayed me with a loud growl. I hadn't eaten since lunch. Yeah, I admitted quietly. I guess I am. He cooked in silence, moving with practiced ease. It was strange watching a man in uniform, all authority and control, standing barefoot in his kitchen, stirring scrambled eggs like it was the most natural thing in the world. When he slid a plate across the counter toward me, I hesitated before sitting down. The eggs were fluffy, golden, sprinkled with pepper. He poured me a glass of water and set it beside the plate. Eat, he said simply. I did. And God, it was better than anything I'd had in weeks. Not because of the flavor, but because someone cared enough to put it in front of me. Cole leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching me but not in a threatening way. More like he was making sure I didn't choke on my own grief. After a while I set the fork down. Thanks. For this. For not arresting me. He shrugged. Didn't see the point. You're not a criminal. You're just hurting. His words landed heavier than he probably meant them to. I looked away, focusing on the wood grain of the counter. Feels like I am. Like I lost control. Like I turned into someone I don't even recognize. That happens, he said. Pain makes people reckless. You just got caught in the middle of it. I studied him, the hard line of his jaw, the way his eyes softened just a little when he spoke. I wondered what kind of pain he knew, what kind of recklessness he'd witnessed. But I didn't ask. Not yet. Instead, he broke the silence. There's a blanket in the trunk by the couch. Should keep you warm. I'll be upstairs if you need anything. I nodded, standing awkwardly, unsure if I should thank him again or just disappear. The farmhouse was quiet, save for the hum of the fridge and the tick of a clock on the wall. I walked into the living room, found the blanket, thick, woolen, smelling faintly of cedar, and curled up on the couch. The cushions sagged in a way that felt lived in, comforting. I pulled the blanket around me, sinking into it like a shield. But sleep didn't come easy. My mind replayed the night on a loop. Matt's hand on that stranger's thigh, the look on his face when I confronted him, the way he shoved me like I was disposable. My chest ached and I clenched the blanket tighter. Then I heard footsteps. Cole's. He came down the stairs, his heavy tread slowing when he reached the bottom. I kept my eyes closed, pretending to sleep. For a moment I thought he might keep walking past. But instead I felt the blanket shift, tucked more securely around me. Gentle, deliberate. Then the faint scent of his soap, clean and sharp, lingered before the footsteps retreated back upstairs. I exhaled shakily, my heart thudding. It was such a small thing, tucking me in, but it cracked something in me. No one had done that in years. Not my parents, not Matt. And that was the dangerous part. Because in that small, quiet gesture I felt something flicker. Not attraction, not yet, or maybe it was, but dulled by exhaustion and grief. Whatever it was, I knew I couldn't afford it. He was a cop. He was a stranger. He was a man with his own life, his own rules. And I was just a broken idiot on his couch. Still, as sleep finally crept in, I couldn't stop the thought that drifted with me into dreams. Maybe this farmhouse wasn't just a place to cool down. Maybe it was the first place in a long time where I felt safe enough to breathe. Morning sunlight streamed through the thin curtains, landing across my face and dragging me awake. For a moment I forgot where I was. The farmhouse was too quiet, too still compared to the city. No traffic, no phones buzzing, no Matt humming in the shower like nothing was wrong. Just birds outside and the faint creak of wood settling. I sat up slowly, the wool blanket slipping off my shoulders. That's when I noticed it, my hand throbbing. A dull, insistent sting. I turned it over and winced. A thin but nasty cut stretched across the heel of my palm. Must have been from last night when I slammed my hand against the bar counter. I hadn't felt it in the chaos, but now the skin was red, swollen around the edges, tacky with dried blood. Damn, I muttered under my breath. You're up. I looked up fast. Cole was standing in the doorway, his uniform shirt unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled. He must have been up for hours already. He had that sharp, awake look about him. He nodded toward my hand. Let me see. It's nothing, I said quickly, tucking my hand against my leg. He arched a brow. That's not nothing. Come on. I shook my head, embarrassed. I've had worse. It'll heal. His tone sharpened. Ryan. Don't argue. You don't want it getting infected. Something in the way he said my name, firm but not unkind, made me sigh. Reluctantly, I extended my hand. He crossed the room, crouching in front of me. His hands were big, steady, calloused in a way that said he knew real work. He cradled mine carefully, turning it palm up. The sting flared when he touched it and I flinched. Hold still, he murmured. From somewhere, a hall closet maybe, he pulled out a small first aid kit. He cleaned the wound with antiseptic, his touch gentle but sure. The cool sting made my eyes water. I bit the inside of my cheek, refusing to make a sound. You always this stubborn? He asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. I tried to smirk. Only when strange cops insist on playing nurse. That earned me a ghost of a smile. He wrapped the bandage snug but not tight, fingers brushing my skin in ways that made my pulse quicken for reasons I didn't want to examine. There, he said finally, sitting back on his heels. Good as new. Thanks, I said quietly. My voice came out rougher than I meant it to. Silence stretched between us. His gaze lingered a second longer than necessary before he cleared his throat and stood, putting a little distance back between us. I exhaled, rubbing my good hand over my face. All the anger from last night rushed back. The image of Matt, laughing with that stranger, his hand exactly where mine used to be. It was a knife in my chest all over again. Cole must have seen the storm in my eyes because he asked, You want to talk about it? I laughed bitterly. Talk about what? How I wasted 3 years on someone who couldn't keep his zipper up. His jaw tightened but he didn't interrupt. I shook my head, words spilling now that the dam was cracked. I kept trying to believe him. Every late night at work, every excuse, every lie, God, I wanted to believe him. And then to walk in and see it right in front of me, my throat burned. He didn't even look sorry. Just annoyed that I ruined his fun. The anger gave way to something heavier, shame. My voice dropped. Makes you wonder if I was ever enough for him. If I'll ever be enough for anyone. Cole leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. His eyes softened in that way again, like he wasn't just hearing me but understanding. That's not on you, Ryan. Some people, they don't know how to value what they have. Doesn't mean you weren't enough. Just means he wasn't. I swallowed hard, staring down at my bandaged hand. His words shouldn't have mattered, but they did. After a long pause, I asked quietly, "What about you? You talk like you've seen this before." He hesitated. For a second I thought he'd brush it off. Then he sighed, running a hand over his jaw. "My marriage is complicated." Something in his voice made me look up. He wasn't wearing his cop mask now. He looked tired, older than last night. "She's distant. Cole. Has been for years," he admitted. "I try, but it's like talking to a wall. And if I'm honest," he paused, searching for the words, "I don't think I'm the only one she's been with." I blinked. "Your wife?" He nodded once. "Yeah." Silence wrapped around us, heavy but intimate. Two men in the same house, both gutted by betrayal in different ways. I let out a shaky laugh, humorless. "So what are we, huh? Two broken men licking our wounds under the same roof?" "Maybe," he said softly. His eyes caught mine, steady and searching. "Or maybe we're two men who know what it feels like to be lied to." The air between us felt charged, heavier than it had any right to be. My chest tightened. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. His presence filled the room, steady, grounding, but underneath it was something else. Something neither of us wanted to name yet. I finally broke the gaze, tugging the blanket back around my shoulders. "I don't want to be someone's rebound." "You're not," he said firmly, almost too quickly. Then he looked away, lowering his voice. "At least, I don't want you to be." That admission hung in the air, raw and fragile. I didn't know what to say. So instead, we let the silence speak for us. As the day slipped into night, he made coffee and I helped with dinner. We talked about simple things: work, music, the town. Nothing heavy, nothing dangerous. But beneath every laugh, every brush of his hand when he passed me a plate, the tension simmered. When it was finally time to sleep, he gestured to the couch again. "You'll be fine there. I'll be upstairs." I nodded. "Thanks. For everything." "Get some rest," he said, voice softer than I'd ever heard it. I curled up under the blanket again, the farmhouse settling around me. Upstairs, his footsteps creaked across the floorboards, then went still. I lay there, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. My chest ached with exhaustion, but my body buzzed with something else: anticipation, longing, fear. We were both broken, both scarred. Maybe that's all it was. Two men reaching for warmth in the cold. But as I drifted into sleep, the thought lingered like a whisper in the dark. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something neither of us saw coming. I told myself it would only be for a night. One night to get my head straight, and then I'd figure out where to go. But morning came, and then another, and somehow I was still there. The farmhouse had a way of swallowing time. Every morning I woke to sunlight spilling through the curtains, the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen. Cole was always up before me, moving around in that quiet, purposeful way of his. The first morning I offered to leave, he waved it off with a simple, "Stay as long as you need." I wanted to argue. Pride told me I shouldn't rely on him, shouldn't get comfortable. But comfort was exactly what I craved, and the farmhouse gave it in spades. We fell into a rhythm. I helped with chores around the place, feeding the chickens, hauling wood, small tasks that kept my hands busy while my mind wrestled with everything else. In the evenings we cooked together. He wasn't much of a talker, but he laughed easily when I teased him about how seriously he chopped vegetables, like he was interrogating the cutting board. One night after dinner we ended up outside on the porch. The sky was clear, scattered with stars brighter than I'd ever seen in the city. Cole leaned against the railing, his arms folded, gaze tipped upward. "You see that?" he asked, pointing. "Orion. My dad used to tell me stories about him when I was a kid." I followed his finger, watching the constellation gleam. His voice was steady, almost reverent. I didn't know much about stars, but listening to him, I didn't care. I just liked hearing him talk, the way his low voice carried into the night. There were moments like that, small and ordinary, that carved cracks into my defenses. A brush of his shoulder against mine when we both reached for the salt. His hand grazing mine when we passed plates across the table. The way he looked at me sometimes, longer than necessary, like he was memorizing the shape of me. And I was guilty too. I caught myself watching him when he worked outside, sleeves rolled to his elbows, muscles shifting under his shirt as he chopped wood. He wiped the sweat from his brow with the back of his hand, and I'd look away fast, ashamed at the heat curling in my chest. At night, lying on the couch with the blanket pulled tight, I replayed those little touches, those looks. I told myself not to. He was married. I was heartbroken. We were two broken men circling the edges of something dangerous. One evening after dinner, I lingered in the kitchen, drying dishes while he put them away. Our hands brushed over the same plate and we both froze. His eyes met mine, the space between us charged. "I don't want to take advantage," he said quietly. The words hit like cold water. I swallowed. "You're not. You're vulnerable," he countered, his voice low, careful. "You've been hurt. Last thing you need is me crossing lines." He was right. God, he was right. And yet, standing there with his hands still hovering near mine, every part of me wanted him to cross those lines. "Maybe I need someone to remind me I'm still worth wanting," I whispered before I could stop myself. His jaw tightened, his breath sharp. He looked at me like I was both temptation and danger. For a second, I thought he'd close the gap, press me against the counter, kiss me until I forgot Matt ever existed. But then he stepped back. He ran a hand through his hair, muttering, "Not like this." The space between us widened again, and my chest ached with both relief and disappointment. Later that night, we ended up on the porch again. He lit a lantern, the warm glow flickering across his face as we sat in silence. Crickets sang in the dark. After a while he spoke. "You ever wonder if we're just reaching for each other because we're lonely?" The question mirrored the one I'd been too afraid to ask myself. I swallowed hard. "Yeah, I wonder that." "And," he asked. I shook my head. "I don't know. All I know is when you're around it feels easier to breathe." His gaze snapped to mine, and in that moment the air between us tightened again. I don't remember who leaned in first. Maybe it was him. Maybe it was me. But suddenly our faces were close enough that I could feel the warmth of his breath, smell the faint trace of soap and smoke on his skin. My pulse hammered, my lips parted. And then he pulled back. Just a fraction, but enough. His hands clenched at his sides, like he was fighting himself. "I can't," he said roughly. I blinked, my throat thick. "Why not?" His eyes flickered with conflict, guilt, longing. "Because if I kiss you, I won't stop." The words lit a fire under my skin, equal parts thrill and torment. I wanted him to lose control. I wanted to fall into that fire with him. But instead we sat there, the night pressing around us, the silence heavy with everything unspoken. Eventually he stood. "Get some rest," he murmured, his voice softer now, almost tender. Then he disappeared inside, leaving me alone with the stars and a heart pounding too hard to let me sleep. The storm rolled in without warning. One minute, the night was still, the cicadas buzzing in the trees. The next, the sky cracked open with thunder that rattled the windows. Rain hammered the roof, sheets of water pelting against the farmhouse like it was under siege. I was curled on the couch, blanket wrapped around me when the lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. The hum of the fridge died, the lamps went dark. Silence, except for the rain and the low rumble of thunder. "Great," I muttered under my breath. Cole came down the stairs a moment later, a flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. He looked calm, of course. Like even the weather wouldn't dare rattle him. "Power's out," he said unnecessarily. "Happens out here when the lines get hit." He lit a couple of candles and set them on the table. The soft glow cast shadows across his face, made the lines of his jaw sharper, his eyes darker. I pulled the blanket tighter. "Guess that means no TV, no phone charger?" "And no distractions," he said quietly. The words hung between us, heavier than the storm outside. When the wind picked up, rattling the shutters, he grabbed an armful of wood and built a fire in the stone fireplace. Soon, flames crackled and snapped, throwing warm light across the room. He sank into the armchair opposite me, the fire painting his skin in gold and orange. For a while we sat in silence, just listening to the storm. I watched the way the firelight flickered in his eyes, the way his chest rose and fell in steady rhythm. Something about it, the storm raging outside, the quiet intimacy inside, made it impossible to keep pretending there wasn't something simmering between us. He was the one who broke it. "You ever think," he said slowly, "about how easy it is to forget you're alive?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" His gaze stayed on the fire. "Years go by and you do what you're supposed to. You work, you play the part, you keep the peace. And then one day you wake up and realize you haven't actually felt anything real in a long time." He paused, his voice rougher now. "I think I forgot what it felt like, until you." The words made my heart trip in my chest. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but he kept going. When I walked into that bar and saw you, angry, hurt, refusing to stay quiet, it hit me like a damn punch. I've been half asleep for years and suddenly, there you were. Alive. Raw. And it scared me. I swallowed hard. My throat was tight, my hands gripping the blanket until my knuckles ached. I haven't felt seen in a long time either, I admitted. My voice shook but I forced the words out. With Matt it was like I was furniture. There when he wanted me, invisible when he didn't. But with you, I trailed off, heat flooding my face. It feels like you see me. All of me. And I don't know what to do with that. Finally his eyes met mine across the fire. The silence was deafening. My heart pounded so hard I thought he could hear it. He stood slowly, crossing the small space between us. Every step made the air thicker, heavier. He stopped in front of me, looking down, his jaw tense. Ryan, he said, my name rough in his mouth. I looked up at him and I knew what was about to happen. I wanted it, feared it, craved it. He leaned down, slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. His hand brushed my cheek, calloused fingers surprisingly gentle. And then his lips met mine. The kiss was hesitant at first, tentative, like we were both testing forbidden waters. But then hunger surged, raw and aching. I gripped his shirt, pulling him closer, while his hand slid to the back of my neck, holding me like he'd been starving for this. My chest burned with it, guilt, relief, need all tangled together. The storm outside raged, thunder crashing, rain lashing the windows, but none of it touched us. The only storm that mattered was between our mouths, our hands, our racing hearts. And then he broke away. Breathing hard, eyes wild. I can't, he said, his voice ragged. I froze, chest heaving. Why not? His hand lingered against my jaw, trembling. Because if I don't stop now, I won't stop at all. And I don't know if either of us is ready for that. The ache in my chest was unbearable. I wanted to scream at him, to beg him not to stop. But deep down I knew he was right. This wasn't just about lust. This was about something bigger, scarier. I closed my eyes, resting my forehead against his for just a second, letting myself feel the warmth of him. I don't want to be someone's mistake, I whispered. He pulled back, pain flickering in his gaze. You're not. But if we go too far now before I make things right, it'll feel like one. And I won't do that to you. The fire popped loudly, filling the silence between us. Finally he stepped back, running a hand over his face. We should get some sleep. His voice was steadier now, but I could hear the strain beneath it. I nodded, unable to speak. My lips still tingled, my body still hummed with the ghost of his touch. He retreated upstairs and I sank back onto the couch, pulling the blanket around me like armor. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one inside me. I lay there for hours, staring at the fire until it burned low, my mind replaying the kiss again and again. It was everything I wanted and everything I feared. Hesitancy. Longing. Guilt. It was all there, tangled together. And as the storm finally began to ease, I realized one truth I couldn't run from anymore. I wanted him. Not as a distraction, not as a rebound. I wanted him because, for the first time in years, I felt alive too. I thought the storm from the night before had passed, but I was wrong. The real storm arrived the next afternoon, pulling into the driveway in a silver SUV. I was sitting on the porch, sipping coffee, when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. My stomach flipped. Visitors weren't common out here, at least that's what Cole had told me. The door swung open and there she was. Tall, sharp-featured, hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. Her heels clicked against the porch wood as if she owned the place. Her eyes scanned me first, narrowing with suspicion before darting past me. Cole, she called, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. We need to talk. My throat went dry. I stood so quickly I almost spilled my coffee. Before I could stammer out a word, Cole appeared in the doorway behind me, his face set in a grim mask. Caroline, he said flatly. She folded her arms, her lips curling in a tight, bitter smile. So it's true. You're hiding someone here. I'm not hiding anyone, he said evenly. His hand rested lightly on the doorframe, a tension in his shoulders I hadn't seen before. Ryan's a guest. That's all. Her gaze raked over me, dismissive and scalding all at once. A guest? That's what we're calling it now. The air was too thick and I couldn't breathe in it. I mumbled something incoherent and slipped past them into the house, heart pounding. I didn't want to be there when the knives came out. From the living room I could still hear them. You're unbelievable, Caroline snapped. Do you have any idea what this looks like? Me driving up here, seeing you play house with some boy on the porch? Don't, Cole warned, his voice low. What? Don't point out the obvious? You think people in town won't notice? You think they won't start whispering? God, Cole, you've always been so naive. His reply was steady, though I could hear the strain under it. Ryan has nothing to do with our problems. I sank onto the couch, pressing the heel of my hand to my forehead. Problems. That word alone was enough to make bile rise in my throat. I wasn't supposed to be part of someone else's problems. You don't even deny it anymore, do you? She hissed. That we're broken. That this, whatever this is between us, it's over. The silence stretched, then she laughed, bitter and sharp. You stopped pretending. I should have known. God forbid you face me like a man. No, you'd rather find comfort somewhere else. I haven't, Cole started. Oh, don't lie to me, she cut in, her voice rising. You think I don't notice? The late nights, the excuses, the way you don't even look at me anymore? Don't act like I'm the only one who strayed. My chest tightened. There it was, the confirmation. She'd had her own affairs. Maybe more than one. And yet she stood there, cutting him down, acting like the victim. You stopped loving me years ago, Cole said finally. His voice was calm, almost too calm. You know it. I know it. Her laugh was hollow. Love. Don't make me laugh. You married this farm. You married your damn badge. You never married me. I couldn't listen anymore. Guilt gnawed at me, sharp and merciless. I slipped out the back door, circling around to the barn. My chest heaved as I paced, the words replaying in my head. This was wrong. All of it. I was standing in the ruins of someone else's marriage, feeling something for a man who still had ties he hadn't cut. Even if she'd betrayed him, even if he was lonely, even if last night's kiss had set my entire world on fire, none of it changed the truth. I was the other man. I gripped the barn railing, the wood rough under my bandaged palm. My stomach churned. I'd been cheated on, humiliated, discarded, and now I was doing the same thing to someone else, even if I hadn't meant to. I heard their voices again, drifting closer, sharp through the rain-soaked air. You'll regret this, Cole, Caroline snapped. Throwing away a marriage for some lost stray you dragged in. What happens when he leaves you too? What happens when you're left with nothing? My breath hitched. A stray. That's what I was to her. A stray. And the worst part was she wasn't wrong. I didn't belong here. I was a guest, temporary, a mess bleeding into a life that wasn't mine. The guilt pressed down so hard it nearly buckled me. I imagined packing my bag, slipping out before dawn, leaving a note. Thank you. I'm sorry. Inside, I heard the thud of a door slamming. Silence followed, then footsteps across the floorboards. A moment later, the porch screen squeaked open and shut. Her SUV roared to life, gravel spitting as she tore down the drive. I lingered in the barn, staring out at the muddy fields, heart pounding with something I couldn't name. Shame, fear, longing all tangled together. The back door creaked open behind me. Ryan. His voice was quiet, tired. I turned, and there he was, framed in the doorway, the stormlight painting him in shades of gray. His eyes were weary, but there was no anger in them. Only something softer, something that twisted the knife in me even deeper. You heard, he said. I nodded. My voice barely worked. I should go. He stepped inside, closing the door gently. You don't have to. I don't want to be the reason, I said quickly, the words rushing out like they'd been waiting. The reason a marriage ends. The reason she, God, Cole, I know what it feels like to be betrayed. I can't, my voice cracked. I can't do that to someone else, even her. His jaw clenched, but he didn't move closer. He gave me space, his silence heavy but patient. I feel like I'm drowning, I admitted, pressing my palm to my chest. One minute I'm angry, the next I stopped myself before I said in love. I couldn't. Not when it felt like betrayal. He finally spoke, his voice low. Ryan. You didn't end my marriage. She did. Years ago. The words should have comforted me, but they didn't. Not yet. All I could feel was the weight of secrecy, of being hidden, of that kiss we'd stolen like thieves in the night. That night, I lay awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling as shadows from the fire played across it. The farmhouse no longer felt like refuge. It felt like a crossroads. And in the silence, guilt whispered louder than thunder. What if she's right? What if I'm just a distraction? What if I'm nothing more than a reason for him to escape? I closed my eyes, but sleep never came. I couldn't sleep. Not after Caroline's words, not after the look in Cole's eyes. By the time dawn crept over the horizon, pale light filling the farmhouse, I'd made up my mind. I couldn't stay. I moved quietly, careful not to wake him upstairs. My bag wasn't much, just a change of clothes, my wallet, my phone charger. I stuffed them inside with trembling hands, heart pounding with every zipper, every fold of fabric. The farmhouse had been a refuge, yes, but I couldn't turn it into a battlefield for someone else's broken marriage. I was halfway to the door when his voice stopped me. Ryan. I froze. My throat went dry. Slowly I turned. He stood in the doorway, barefoot, hair tousled, wearing just a t-shirt and sweats. He looked like he hadn't slept either. His eyes were locked on my bag. You're leaving. It wasn't a question. I swallowed hard. It's better this way. His jaw tightened. Better for who? For everyone. My voice cracked. For you, for her, for me. I can't be the reason your life implodes. I won't. He stepped closer and I backed up instinctively, pressing my bag against my chest like a shield. Ryan, stop running. Please. I'm not running, I snapped, though the tears stinging my eyes said otherwise. I'm protecting myself. Protecting you. You still have ties to her. You still don't? His voice dropped, raw and sharp. Don't give me that. That marriage died years ago. You heard it yourself. She doesn't want me. I don't want her. What we had is over. Then why does it feel like I'm just filling the gap? I asked bitterly. Why does it feel like I'm just your escape route? He stopped just a foot away now, close enough that I could see the hurt in his eyes, the tension in his jaw. His voice shook with intensity. Because you're not a gap. You're not a distraction. You're the first thing in years that's felt real. Do you understand that? He inhaled, steadying himself. I want you here. Not just tonight. Not just until this mess settles. Tomorrow. And the day after. And the day after that. The words hit me like a blow, knocking the air out of my lungs. He wasn't saying stay for now. He was saying stay, period. I shook my head, tears spilling before I could stop them. Cole, I don't know if I can trust this. I don't know if I can trust you. His hand lifted slowly, hesitantly, then cupped my face. His thumb brushed away a tear, gentle, patient. Then let me prove it. Every day I'll prove it. No more lies. No more half-life. Just us. If you'll let me. My chest heaved. The fear inside me fought against the longing, the guilt against the truth. For a moment, I wavered, caught between the door behind me and the man in front of me. And then I gave in. The bag slipped from my hands to the floor. I closed the distance, pressing my forehead to his, my eyes squeezing shut. I'm so damn scared, I whispered. Me too, he admitted, his breath hot against my lips. But I'd rather be scared with you than numb without you. That was all it took. I kissed him, hard, desperate, like I'd been holding my breath for days and finally let it out. He kissed me back with the same hunger, his hands pulling me closer, anchoring me to him. This wasn't the hesitant brush of lips from the storm. This was surrender. We stumbled backward toward the couch, laughter breaking between kisses when we nearly tripped over my bag. His mouth trailed down my neck and I gasped, my hands tangling in his shirt. He whispered my name like a prayer, each syllable lighting me on fire. Clothes loosened, buttons undone, not rushed but deliberate, each touch lingering, reverent. It wasn't about lust alone, it was about proof, about need, about claiming something we both thought we'd lost. When we finally sank into each other, it was slow, careful, tender. Every movement felt like an answer to a question we'd been too afraid to ask. His hands held me steady, mine clung to him like I'd never let go. There was no shame, no fear in that moment, only the certainty that this was more than infidelity. This was truth. This was love, raw and imperfect, but ours. Afterward, we lay tangled together, the storm replaced by silence. His heartbeat thudded steady against my ear, grounding me. You're not leaving, he murmured, half asleep but certain. No, I whispered back, my fingers tracing idle patterns across his chest. I'm not. For the first time in a long time, the thought of tomorrow didn't scare me. It felt possible. It felt like a promise. The days that followed felt like stepping into a life I never imagined. Cole didn't hide anymore. He called Caroline, told her it was over. Not with shouting or slammed doors this time, but with quiet finality. I wasn't in the room when he did it, but afterward he came to me on the porch, his face pale but steady. I've closed that chapter, he said. I won't live a lie anymore. The words stayed with me. A man who spent his whole life keeping order, keeping things clean and contained, had chosen the messy truth instead. For me. For us. It was strange how quickly the farmhouse began to feel less like his and more like ours. Mornings started with coffee at the kitchen table, sunlight pooling across the wood, steam curling between us as we traded easy silences and small smiles. Sometimes he'd read the paper and I'd pretend to be interested, though really I just watched the way his brow furrowed when he focused. After breakfast we walked the fields together. He showed me the land like it was a part of himself, pointing out where the soil was richest, where the deer came at dusk, where his father once built a tree swing that had long since rotted away. I listened, storing every detail as if learning the land meant learning him. There was laughter too. God, I hadn't laughed like that in years. Over burned toast when I forgot the timer. Over the stubborn rooster that seemed to hate me on sight. Over my terrible attempts at chopping wood, which he finally stopped by sliding in behind me, his hands guiding mine on the handle of the axe, his chest warm against my back. At night, the farmhouse glowed with more than firelight. It glowed with presence. The silence that once felt heavy now hummed with comfort. I cooked while he set the table, we teased each other over who made the better scrambled eggs, we curled up together on the couch, his arm draped over me like it belonged there. Every now and then, guilt flickered in the back of my mind. Old habits die hard. I'd catch myself wondering if I was still the other man, if the shadow of what came before would always linger. But then he'd look at me, really look at me with steady eyes and a kind of unshakable certainty, and I'd know. We weren't hiding. We weren't stealing moments. This was ours. The irony wasn't lost on me. The night I thought I'd lose everything, I had gained something I didn't even know I needed. I went from expecting cold steel cuffs to feeling warm hands steadying me. From thinking my freedom was gone to realizing I'd been given something far greater, belonging. The farmhouse itself became a symbol of that. It had been quiet, lonely, filled with walls that kept secrets. Now it was alive. With laughter, with footsteps, with the sound of two men choosing to be unafraid. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in streaks of orange and pink, Cole and I stood at the edge of the field, watching the light fade. He slipped his hand into mine, not hesitant, not hidden. Just certain. "This place feels different now," I said softly. He glanced at me, squeezing my hand. "Because it's not just mine anymore." I swallowed past the lump in my throat, realizing he was right. This farmhouse wasn't a stopover. It wasn't a hiding place. It was a home. For the first time in years, I didn't dread tomorrow. I welcomed it. And as we turned back toward the farmhouse, his arm brushing against mine, I thought the words that had been circling in me since that night in the bar, words I finally understood. I thought he'd take my freedom that night, but instead, he gave me a home, and a love I never thought I'd find.